After a boy mischievously drops a fork in the road, he unknowingly causes a car accident that lets a convict go on the loose. One afternoon, Will Carson runs for his life as the car that'll transport him from the county jail gets one of its tires blown. Since he's been missing, Sheriff Thompson instructs his team to search for him, thinking he'll be a threat to the locals. It's already dark when Will discovers a barn in the area, so he enters it to seek refuge for the night. Once inside, Will immediately searches for clothes to change his inmate attire. Then, he ascends the stairs to the hayloft and finds a spot to sleep. While he tries to fall asleep, Will hears an argument outside following a gunshot. Will quickly descends the stairs to check on what has transpired. Outside, he notices a woman struggling to drag an unconscious body to the car's trunk. Once the woman successfully settles the body on the trunk, she speeds away, allowing Will to sneak inside her house to find sustenance. As he walks into the kitchen, he notices a trail of blood, but he ignores it as his mind is focused on finding food. Without inhibitions, Will makes a sandwich from the woman's fridge, but as he eats it, he notices a gun on the kitchen counter. He remains unfazed since he's now trying to find new clothes. Meanwhile, the woman tries to leave the town in hopes of burying the body. However, a roadblock halts her plan, causing her to cry in frustration. Back in the woman's house, Will's immersed in getting changed when he hears a car parked outside. He checks the window and realizes the woman's returned home. Afraid he'll get caught, Will hurriedly hides inside the closet. At that moment, the woman arrives in the room and unthinkingly opens the closet. Now terrified of the intruder, the woman tries to flee, but Will chases her, afraid that she'll alert anyone who hears her screams. Will subdues her on the floor and informs her that he's an escaped convict. While at it, he gives her a half-baked threat to ensure she won't make unwanted actions. Because of his words, the woman relents and asks him what he needs. Will enumerates that he needs money, clothes, food, and a way to escape town. Wanting him gone, the woman gives him the freedom to take everything he needs. Once the two are up from the floor, a car distracts them, urging them to check who it might be. The woman quickly hides and alerts Will that it's the sheriff. Comprehending that he's the target, Will orders the panicking woman to deal with him and reminds her not to let him in. At the front door, the woman effortlessly converses with the sheriff and pretends she has never seen the prisoner. Her front convinces the sheriff, so he simply provides her with safety precautions and quickly takes his leave. Shortly after, the woman informs Will that the police have alerted all of the locals and blocked all the roads. Begrudgingly, she blames his presence since it hinders her plans to dump the body. Will takes offense to her words, so he emphasizes her incompetence in executing her plan. Now, it's her turn to feel insulted, leading her to chastise him that he doesn't know anything about what happened earlier. Will's already moved on from the topic and is keen on escaping the town. Therefore, he asks her if there's another possible road out of the town and she confirms. However, she's unsure how safe it is, especially at night, so she refuses to drive there. In frustration, Will crumbles his wanted poster and aggressively throws it away. After gathering his thoughts, Will tells her he has to leave for Mexico and creates a deal with her. He proposes that he'll help her dispose of the body if she'll help him escape. The woman tries to refuse, but Will's patience is wearing thin. Hence, he scolds her, saying that if they continuously argue instead of moving, the police will track him in her house. Upon reaching a secluded forest, Will begins to dig a grave for the body, but as he does so, he inquires about why the woman shot the man. She tiredly answers that she didn't plan on shooting him. Will finds her answer absurd. Therefore, he orders her to take her turn digging. A few moments later, the two carry the body to the grave and quickly dump it in there. Will hopes the man deserves his fate, and the woman confirms. When he hears her bitter words, Will asks if she wants to say something to the body, but she just stops away. Suddenly, the man grabs Will from behind and begins to attack him. The woman is surprised to see that the man is still alive, so she quickly searches for a possible weapon that'll subdue him. While she's away, the man overpowers Will and climbs up from the grave. When he gains his footing, the man calls out for her name, which turns out to be April Dumas. But before he can continue his threat, April knocks him out with a shovel. Though the man's unconscious, April's rage urges her to keep on attacking him. Will intervenes, confusing her, especially since he'll surely end their lives when he wakes up. For him, it's good that he's still alive as he believes he's her husband, and they can just reconcile. April clarifies that he's not her husband since her spouse is Carl Dumas, whereas the unconscious man is named Martin Cheater, an insurance agent. Perplexed, Will asks why she shot him if he's not her husband. She explains that Martin extorted her money by threatening to leak their compromising photos to her husband. She clarifies that these photos were staged and were taken without her knowledge since he spiked her drink. Due to Martin's threats, she shot him as she's afraid that Carl will believe their alleged affair. Knowing Carl, she knows he'll end her life. Now torn, Will asks her about Carl's whereabouts, and April shares that he's away for business. Shortly after, Will places Martin's body on the trunk and proceeds to get inside the car. April asks him about their plan, and he answers that they must keep moving. While on the the road, Will asks her how she's met Martin, and she recounts that she met him at a bar with her friends and sister. He bought them drinks, which resulted in her getting spiked. After a while, they secure a motel room where Will carries Martin inside, whereas April inspects the trunk. She discovers some photos from Martin's binder, so she rushes inside and shows them to Will. April is not the only subject of Martin's twisted acts, as one of her friends has also suffered the same fate. After browsing the pictures, Will opines that Martin might have copies of them on his computer, further worrying April. Then, he scans a notebook and discovers it contains numerous women's names alongside their phone numbers. Afterward, Will orders April to guard Martin while he grabs some food. April protests that she doesn't want to be alone with him, but Will doesn't yield since Martin is her problem, not his. Still paranoid, April asks him what they'll do about the possibility of Martin getting loose. Left with no choice, the two securely tape Martin onto the toilet bowl, ensuring he can't escape. Once Will leaves, April can't stop her urge to urinate, but she doesn't know where to relieve herself. Inside the bathroom, Martin tries to find a way to escape when he notices that the toilet has loose bolts. Because of that, he tries to heave the toilet to snap them. While he is in the middle of it, April enters and covers his head with a towel. Then, she goes to the bathtub to try relieving herself. Despite her efforts, April can't urinate since Martin's presence distracts her. As a result, she storms out of the room and goes outside to urinate. Now alone, Martin successfully breaks the bolts, making him feel victorious. However, his victory ends as he slips and falls down the tub. His head accidentally hits the faucet in the process, leading to the water's uncontrollable flow. On the other hand, April returns to the room after urinating, and she watches television to amuse herself. Just in time, Will arrives with the food and checks on her. April answers that she's fine and they begin to feast. Unbeknownst to them, Martin's actually drowning while they're eating. When Will tries to grab a drink, he notices the water spilling underneath the bathroom door. He questions April about what she did to cause such an occurrence, but she's clueless. Suspicious, the two check inside and discover Martin's peculiar yet grim fate. Immediately, the two leave the bathroom and feel troubled with how they'll dispose of the body now that Martin is dead this time. Without a choice, Will eliminates the traces of Martin's passing. Moments later, Will carries Martin's body, and April helps him settle it on the car's trunk. Afterward, they speed away from the motel to find a place to bury Martin. The following day, the two arrive at a deserted area as Will hopes it'll be perfect for burying Martin. However, as Will tries to dig a grave, the ground is too dense, making it difficult for him to penetrate it. Without a choice, the two decide to dispose of Martin by letting his car drive off the cliff. To execute their plan, they start wiping off their fingerprints from the vehicle. Suddenly, April receives a phone call from Carl. During their conversation, Carl checks on her, but April lies that she's out running errands. She asks him when he'll return, and Carl replies that he's unsure since he's still busy. Unbeknownst to April, Carl isn't busy with his business. Instead, he's fooling around with his mistress. Moments later, Will positions Martin inside his car and includes all of the items that'll make it appear as if he ended his own life. Then, he starts the car's engine and watches the event unfold. Later on, Martin's car falls down the cliff, giving the two a moment of relief. While they recuperate, Will talks about buying a used car as a getaway vehicle to Mexico by using April's credit card. With their topic, April realizes her purse is missing and remembers leaving it in Martin's car. Will asks if her purse contains all her monetary possessions, and April meekly confirms. Despite his frustration, Will leads the way in descending the cliff to retrieve April's purse. Upon reaching the bottom, Martin's car abruptly explodes, changing Will and April's plans. As they return to the top, Will opines that he's starting to believe that being in prison is better than their current situation. Curious, April asks him what he's done that sent him to prison. Will reveals that he was wrongly charged with a crime he didn't commit. He recounts that he was giving his friend a ride, but he was unaware he'd be robbing a liquor store and he also shot a man. Despite his innocence, Will was deemed the culprit and was sentenced to 15 years. April begins to feel bad for him, so as a consolation, she offers to give him her car. Will is grateful but worries that Carl will be furious when he discovers the car is gone. Still, April insists he takes it and assures him that dealing with Carl will be her problem, not his. Meanwhile, in April's residence, Carl arrives home with flowers in his hands. He calls for April, hoping to alert her about his arrival, but no one responds. Therefore, Carl heads into their bedroom, but instead of finding his wife, the room's disheveled state greets him. He scans the area, and his gaze locks on a man's underwear on the floor. As a result, Carl thinks April's having an affair behind his back. To find other evidence of April's infidelity, Carl rushes to their kitchen and discovers copies of her sensitive photos with Martin. Infuriated, Carl returns to their bedroom and looks for his gun, planning to confront Martin for touching his wife. However, he discovers his gun is missing, leading him to throw its case. Shortly after, Carl hurriedly drives to Martin's residence and barges inside, but Martin's nowhere to be found. Therefore, Carl decides to visit visit his office, but again he can't find him. On the other hand, April wakes up after spending time in the water and lets her gaze wander on Will's body. Breaking out of a trance, April starts to get dressed, unaware that Will is watching her. Once they're dressed, the two hitchhike to go home. After Carl's fruitless pursuit of Martin, he returns to his house and tries to call April's phone. However, she doesn't answer since her phone submerged in the lake. Meanwhile, April and Will successfully return to the farm but discover Carl has returned. As a result, they have to change plans, wherein April instructs Will to take her car once Carl is asleep. Now that his departure is secured, Will says it'll be the last time they'll see each other. When April agrees, an undeniable tension forms between them, but instead of pursuing it, she abruptly shakes his hand and bids him good luck on this journey to Mexico. After that, the two part ways. April walks in her house's direction whereas Will goes to the barn. Inside the barn, Will climbs the hayloft and lies down to recuperate. Out of nowhere, he hears an argument between April and her husband. Will arrives in time before Carl can further hurt April. However, Carl overpowers him and is about to punch him when April hits Carl with a bottle of liquor, knocking him unconscious. Due to the sudden turn of events, the two decide to clarify everything to Carl while he's securely taped on the sofa. When Carl remains skeptical, April decides to take him to the location of Martin's body. Meanwhile, in the sheriff's office, Detective Ross informs Sheriff Thompson that he's found numerous pictures of bare women on Martin's computer. Hence, he concludes that he might be pimping them. Just like him, Thompson discovers something interesting with another person of interest, Carl. Carl has a previous criminal record for domestic battery toward his wife. With that, the two decide to interrogate him to discover why he's fixated on hunting Martin. Shortly after, the two break inside the Dumas residence and stumble upon the house's messy state. Ross and Thompson notice the photos, the duct-taped sofa, and dried blood on the floor. Upstairs, Thompson encounters the couple's disorganized bedroom with a gun's casing beside it, causing him to hypothesize that Carl has ended Martin's life out of jealousy. Back in the deserted terrain, April and Will guide Carl in descending the bottom of the cliff. As soon as they arrive, the trio is confused as to why Martin's burnt car is nowhere to be found. This causes Carl to laugh in amusement and start to berate April. Determined to prove their point, Will tells him that the burn and tire marks are still on the ground. Carl isn't interested in listening to them, so he grabs the flattened can and runs away. Will and April notice what he's done, so they decide to check on him to ensure he hasn't hurt himself. But when they approach the bush, Carl's missing. Suddenly, Will spots the torn pieces of duct tape, realizing Carl has escaped. For this reason, they quickly run to ascend the cliff, hoping to get in the car before him. Unfortunately, Carl is already driving the vehicle, making them travel on foot. On the road, Carl sees that a police car is following him, hence he abruptly stops driving. He expresses his excitement upon seeing the officer as he hopes to report his wife's supposed crookedness. However, things don't go his way because he's the officer's target. After Carl's arrest, Sheriff Thompson and Detective Ross interrogate him for Martin's death. During the whole interrogation, Carl realizes that April is telling the truth after Thompson discloses that they found Martin's body and his car below the cliff. A few moments later, Carl contacts Nola, his mistress, and pleads with her to testify they were together at the time of Martin's passing. The next day, Will and April visit her sister to spend a few days in her house. Things become interesting as it turns out April's sister is Carl's mistress. When she sees April instead of Carl, Nola's surprised, but she's able to mask it and shows her concern toward her sister. Following their reunion, April enlightens Nola about her dilemma, and she agrees to help Will reach Mexico. However, it's evident that she dislikes Will, so she orders him to get them a glass of water. While the sisters are conversing, Will accomplishes his task, but he notices the sheriff's car outside. Immediately, he alerts the two about the sheriff's presence, making Nola order them to hide while she deals with Thompson. Panicking, April invites Will to hide in the closet, believing it'll be safer there. Due to their inconvenient hiding spot, another tension arises between them, and they're trying hard to resist it. Even if they fight the urge, it's strong, so they eventually kiss. Since they're both fired up, Will accidentally hits a canvas from above, causing some of Nola's items to fall. April notices the canvas bears a familiar painting, so she turns on the lights. This leads the two to realize that it's the painting from the photos that Martin staged. To further prove their hunch, April places it on the bed, and Will shows her the copies of the photos from Nola's box. April pieces the evidence and discovers that Nola is Martin's accomplice in extorting women. Infuriated, she tries to confront her sister, but Will stops her since it'll cause them to reveal themselves to Thompson. Coincidentally, more proof of Nola's wickedness appears as her telephone voicemail reveals Carl's voice, endearingly calling her. After Nola's interview with Thompson, she heads to her bedroom, only to see that April has discovered her dark secret. Immediately, Nola hides in her bathroom and threatens to call the police on them. April's unfazed and calls her out for sleeping with her husband. When she refuses to leave, Nola threatens to shoot shoot her and Will. This time, Will convinces April to leave by inviting her to come with him to Mexico. Making up her mind, April returns to Nola's bedroom to retrieve her car keys and the two leave. Still inside the bathroom, Nola vigilantly waits for April to barge inside, but instead, Carl tries to open the door. As a result, Nola fires the gun out of panic, ending his life. April and Will return to the house only to see Carl's lifeless body. April confronts Nola for her careless behavior, but she reasons that she didn't mean to do it. With a sigh, Carl's body becomes another problem for Will to dispose of. A few moments later, the trio arrives at the deserted area, where they've changed Carl's outfit into Will's inmate attire. They plan to make the police think Will's passed away after driving off the cliff. When everything's in place, they push the car and watch it slowly fall. After a while, the two drop off Nola on the road near their neighborhood. Before they leave, Nola asks if she can see April again, but the woman doesn't answer directly. Instead, April expresses her gratitude to her for being a good provider. Now alone, Nola begins to hurt and aggressively rub herself on the ground. Then, she gathers her fake tears and calls the police for a pseudo-emergency. Inside the interrogation room, Nola narrates a fake scenario wherein Will has attacked her inside her house. She delivers a believable front, so Thompson just asks her to verify if the current body at the bottom of the cliff is Will's, and she confirms. Through Nola's confirmation and an officer's information that Carl might have walked into the Canadian border, Sheriff Thompson and Detective Ross make the wrong conclusion. They believe Will's escape was planned and Carl was his accomplice in committing the crime against Martin. Now on their way out of town, Will intends to ditch traveling to Mexico with April, opining that the authorities might think they're dead. Therefore, he suggests they can go anywhere they want freely. Just as they speed away, the fork that caused Will's escape still lies on the road.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.